Example number 1. On that left-hand side first, simplify what's inside. Let's not multiply through by anything yet. Just simplify what's inside the parentheses. So your 3 and the 4 stay where they're at, but what happens to the x's? They flip. So you would have x to the second on the bottom and x on top. What about the y's? Stay the same. And then we'll just keep this exponent right here for now. Over here you have 2 and 3 that stay. What about the x's? They flip. And what about the y's?
The y stays on the bottom, but the y6 falls.
Yep, the y to the 6 down to the bottom. And we'll keep this exponent the same. Before you multiply through by anything, you can keep these where they're at and then simplify. So you still have a 3 and a 4, but x over x squared is what? 1 over x, so you just have an x on the bottom. X over x squared, 2 minus 1 would be 1, so x to the first on the bottom. What about y over y squared? Y on the bottom. So we still have our negative exponent outside. On the right side we have 2 and 3. What about the x's? X on the top. What about the y's? Y to the 8th on the bottom. Now you can flip these things. So you have this negative 2 exponent. I'm going to change to yellow. There we go. You can let this negative 2 act on that 3. What's going to happen to it? It'll go to the bottom, and what's 3 squared? 9. And what happens to 4 to the negative 2? Yeah, it's 16 on top. What about this one? And this one? Alright, and then over on the other side, for this quantity, what happens to this 2? And the 3? What about the x?
It'll go down and just be x.
Y to the 8th?
It'll go up and then it'll be y.
Alright. So now that we have all of that, you can go back and cancel diagonally if you can find anything that will cancel. 3 and 9. 3 into itself once, into 9 3 times. 2 into itself once, into 16 8 times. So from there you can multiply straight across. You have 8, and times 1 is just 8. On the bottom, 3 times 1 is 3. X squared, no other x's on top. Y squared and y to the 8th is y to the 10th. And you just have 1x left on the bottom. What can I still simplify? And what happens there? Just x on the top. So your final answer would be 8xy to the 10th over 3. On the left hand side, that should be 5 and the 3 staying where they're at. The x to the negative 2 on the top will go to the bottom and combine to make an x to the 4th. This will go to the top and combine to be y to the 8th. And then on the right side, 10 and 9 will stay where they're at for now. This goes to the bottom and combines to make an x to the 3rd. This goes to the top and will make a y to the 4th. Now we can go back and distribute the negative 2 exponents on each. And if you apply that to the top, you would end up with a 25 y to the 16th on the bottom. And if you apply this to the bottom, you end up with a 9x to the 8th on the top. On the right side, you would have a 100 y to the 8th on the bottom and an 81 x to the 6th on the top. Now notice that 81 and 100 don't cancel out, and 9 and 25 don't cancel out. You cannot cancel straight across. Cannot do that. You can go diagonally and up and down, but nothing on here is going to cancel. So you end up with a 729 on the top and a 2500 on the bottom. On the top you have x to the 8th, x to the 6th, that's x to the 14th, and on the bottom you would have y to the 24th. Start on the left, and you'll end up with a 3 over 2, but your x's are going to switch. They're both negative. You'll have x to the 3rd on top, x to the 2nd on the bottom. Your y stays on the bottom, and there's a y to the 6th that goes with it. And we're going to keep this to the negative 2 power for now. On the right, it's 4 over 3, and then the x squared stays on top, and the x goes with it from the bottom. Y squared stays on the bottom, and the y from the top goes with it. Simplify what you can. 3 over 2 stays the same, but x to the 3rd over x squared is just x on top, and you have a y to the 7th on the bottom. Still to the negative 2 power. And then on the right you have 4 over 3, and you'll have a couple of x's on top there. That's going to make x to the 3rd, and on the bottom you also have a 3rd power from the y. Now, flip them and let the exponent act on them. So you would have 4y to the 14th on top and 9x squared on bottom. On the right side you would have 9y to the 6th on top and 16x to the 6th on the bottom. We can cancel out. 9's are completely gone. 4 into itself once, into 16 4 times. On the top, you have y to the 14th, y to the 6th, y to the 20th. And then on the bottom, you have a 4. Then x squared, x to the 6th is x to the 8th.
So when will we take the test on all this next Friday?
The test on this should be next week sometime. I'm not sure what day yet.